A new report claims that the Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger wants to, quote, quiet the noise regarding culture war issues because they are, quote, not healthy for Disney's business. Let's get into this here. Needham financial analyst Laura Martin recently attended a 120 person investor event at Walt Disney World and reported on September 20th that during this event, Bob Iger explicitly stated he wanted to, quote, quiet the noise on culture war issues. In Martin's report, which she provided to Bounding into Comics, she explained that Iger believes, quote, content should be entertaining, not issues focused. Furthermore, she detailed that Iger's key goal is to quiet the noise because culture wars are not healthy for Disney's business. I do think we need to provide some context here because this does indeed seem to echo comments he made to CNBC's David Faber back in July. Faber asked the executive, "What about DeSantis, who's going to be on the hustings, so to speak, for the next year?" And he's made this a part of his campaign, attacking Disney, saying it's a woke corporation. We put the company on a pedestal, but they've really embraced the idea of getting the sexualized content in the program line that I'm not willing to cross. I mean, that's what he said. I quoted DeSantis there. How do you respond to that? Iger replied in part. He said, "Well, so far what we've said publicly is that we are concerned that he has decided to retaliate against the company for a position that the company took on pending legislation in that state." The position that the Walt Disney Company took that he's describing here is trying to stop a bill that was preventing the instruction of gender identity and sexual orientation to kindergartners through third graders in Florida public schools. Interestingly, he doesn't actually describe the political position, aka the moral position that the Walt Disney Company took. But nevertheless, he goes on and says, and frankly, the company was within its right, even though I'm not sure it was handled very well. It was within its right to speak up on an issue constitutionally protected right of free speech, and to retaliate against the company in a way that would be harmful to the business was not something that we could sit back and tolerate. And so we have filed a lawsuit to protect our First Amendment rights there and to protect our business. Frankly, it's actually not going very well for the Walt Disney Company. As far as I know, those lawsuits are not turning out very well for them so far. I think the actual suit that the state of Florida filed against them is actually proceeding. They tried to get it tossed out and they failed. Nevertheless, Bob Iger goes on and he says, the other issues that you referenced, the last thing that I want for the company is for the company to be drawn into any culture wars. So here we go. We've operated for almost 100 years as a company making product that we actually are proud of in terms of its impact in the world. I joke every once in a while we're there to manufacture fun. He would later add, I don't really want to engage in the specifics except to say that it's not our goal to be involved in a culture war. Our goal is to continue to tell wonderful stories and have a positive impact on the world. We are a preeminent entertainer in the world, and we're proud of our track record there. The notion that Disney is anyway sexualizing children, quite frankly, is preposterous and inaccurate, except they were literally trying to stop a bill that was trying to teach sexualizing children in kindergarten through third grade. So don't believe you there, Bob. And I really don't believe anything about Bob wanting not to get involved in culture wars. In fact, I think he actually wants to. But let's kind of dive into his comments here, specifically the ones he made with Laura Martin. I think if you look at her report cynically, which I kind of lean at doing, it's not hard to see that Iger wants to continue being involved in the culture war issues and actively pushing them through the company's content, its employee trainings, its sports coverage, and more. Remember, they own ESPN as well. However, he just does not want the company's role in the culture war to be so prominent. He wants it to be suppressed and quieted, basically, in the press. He doesn't want people talking about it. He just wants it to be fed to people through their screens and them to be indoctrinated without people saying what you're doing is wrong, and that actually people are like realizing, oh, this is actually really bad. I'm not gonna watch any more Disney stuff, and I'm gonna avoid the parks. And actually hurting the company's business. And then you also are having government retaliation, who is actually supposed to be protecting the moral good, which the state of Florida is actually doing. So that is good to see there. And then obviously the state stepping in when a company is trying to clearly do kind of evil things to children. But if you look at Martin's report more charitably, it would seem Iger does indeed want to remove the company from the culture wars that he embroiled it in. Remember, he is the one who kind of tweeted out there that the company should get involved in this, and it was absolutely despicable. I think he quote tweeted President Biden, or maybe it was Kamala Harris or something like that, and then kind of forced Bob Chapek's hand. And now he's kind of basically saying the same thing that Bob Chapek pretty much wanted to do. Quite ironic that is, isn't it? However, his words have so far not been followed by actions. So I'm not going to provide a extensive list, but I do have some very prominent examples here, and they're quite recent. So at the end of August, the company hired President Joe Biden's former national traveling press secretary, Remy Yamamoto, to be the company's vice president of media relations for its television division. Variety reported that one of her main duties would be to, quote, oversee crisis communications and issues-oriented messaging. So they're hiring a Joe Biden employee to run their PR. I don't think that is you getting out of culture war issues when you're hiring one of the preeminent culture war warriors. On the Disney Plus front, the company is still pushing the culture war agenda with their upcoming Percy Jackson and the Olympian series on Disney Plus. The series creator Rick Riordan recently defended his and the company's decision to replace a number of characters, their races, by claiming it was, quote, so that everyone could look at this series and see themselves. I feel like I've kind of talked about this a number of times, though. This diversity agenda was exposed as racist back in 2015 and anti-white by Emily Goldstein in a Thought Catalog article back in 2015. She declared diversity is about getting rid of white people, and that's a good thing. She went on to write, I'm extremely glad that the white race is dying, and you should be too. White people do not have a right to exist, period. That may sound like a bold statement, but it's entirely true. Any white person with even the faintest knowledge of history should curse themselves every single day for being white. She would also assert diversity is indeed white genocide, and white genocide is exactly what the world needs more than anything else. And this is kind of the agenda that Rick Riordan is positing when he is defending race replacing his characters for the upcoming Disney Plus show. We also know that the company has racial quotas for its numerous productions. The company's Reimagine Tomorrow website says we are committed to inspiring a more inclusive world by reimagining the way we tell stories and who tells them. Our intention is to broaden access and diversity in our industry by adopting inclusion standards across Disney General Entertainment and live action studio productions by the end of 2022, with the goal of advancing representation in front and behind the camera in marketing and more. It then links to inclusion standards for ABC Entertainment. You can see them here. Some of them say 50% or more of regular and recurring written characters come from underrepresented groups, and 50% or more of regular and recurring actors come from underrepresented groups, among other quotas. There's quite a list of them here. Then you have the company actively grooming their park guests, allowing men to dress up in drag as women or as in women's clothes at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique at Disneyland. A Disney employee named Nick, dressed in drag, was recorded greeting young children outside the shop back at the end of May. You can see a video. There he is right there, greeting people in Disneyland. Two other male Disney employees wearing drag were also photographed greeting children back in August. Libs of TikTok reported this here. Another male employee wearing drag at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, and I'm not really sure where this location is, but clearly another male in drag. And then you also have them promoting the transgender ideology through decor put up throughout the parks. Here are more examples from Libs of TikTok, where they're basically like picture stations where you can have your kids go up and take pictures to them. Sick stuff. In August, the company partnered with a man who dresses up in young girls' clothes in order to hawk a number of their products. The company paid Sean Altman to dress up as Minnie Mouse to sell a cake-worthy Minnie Mouse dress and a Disney-branded Citizen Watch Sensational 6. You can see this was actually shared to the official Disney style TikTok account. So clearly promoting culture war stuff here. And then on top of this, all of this evidence, we have a rumor from WDW Pro that came out at the end of July, basically saying that the company is not going to be abandoning any of this stuff. They actually have an internal culture that makes it so you can't talk about it. And if you do talk about it, you're basically silenced and shut down and ostracized and removed. And then there was another source for WDW Pro, also explained that Disney would not be disengaging from the culture war because they think they're immune from it. This is what the source told WDW Pro. He said the boycott, avoidance of Bud Light and a consumer backlash movement is based on the fact that the product itself is indistinguishable from its main competitors, Miller Lite and Coors Light and Blinds, and all available at the same distribution points, virtually side by side at retail with similar identical prices under normal circumstances. In other words, avoiding that beverage that's under fire is very easy because there is very little inconvenience to the light beer consumer. And then WDW Pro would conclude saying Disney, on the other hand, avoiding Disney is a major inconvenience, and so perhaps the folks at the Walt Disney Company assume consumers would be too burdened by trying to boycott them, and therefore they're not worried about it. And then, on top of all this, when Iger returned as CEO to the Walt Disney Company, he made it very clear the company's immoral agenda and its engagement into the culture war was not going anywhere. He said, "Do I like being embroiled in controversy? Of course not. It can be distracting and it can have a negative impact on the company. And to the extent that I can work to quiet things down," sounds familiar, right? That's what Laura Martin just reported. "I'm going to do that. But I think it's important to put in perspective what some of these subjects are and not just simply brand them as political." When he was actually asked about the Florida bill, he said, "This company has been telling stories for 100 years, and those stories have had a meaningful, positive impact in the world. And one of the reasons that they've had a meaningful, positive impact is one of our core values is inclusion." They just introduced inclusion within the last 2 or 3 years. I think it might have been a little bit later than that, but within this decade, it had not been a quote unquote core value before then. But anyways, he goes on and says, "Core values is inclusion, acceptance, and tolerance, and we can't lose that. We just can't lose that." All of that is just code word speak for we are still staying in the culture wars. So I think that's like this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's probably so many more examples out there, but I think these kind of elucidate the point that this guy is saying he wants to quiet the noise, but he's still full bore pushing a lot of this stuff. You're still seeing it in the parks. You're still seeing it in their programming. You're still seeing it in the way that they're running their company, their casting and stuff. We've got rumors about basically suppression squads and fear and silence among employees for actually speaking up against this stuff and how absolutely degenerate and immoral it is. So I don't think that he's serious when he says quiet the noise. I don't think that means that he actually wants to stop being involved in the culture wars. He just wants it not to get bad PR and reflect poorly on him and the Walt Disney Company and actually affect their bottom line. He just wants to try and keep the press down and not have that negative PR out there, because it does seem like it is having an effect. People are indeed boycotting the Walt Disney Company, and I do think that Bob Iger is feeling the heat, and I think people should keep it up and put his feet to the fire a little more, and let's keep going, and let's actually change this culture for the good and not let it spread and take over and poison the minds of our fellow men and their children especially.
Subscribe for more.